Hello, everyone. Welcome to the KTAL News Now Digital Streaming Center. I'm Brittany DeFran. Now, there is an abundance of rich history in our community, but thanks to a LSUS history professor uncovering those stories using factual evidence, we now get the opportunity to share the story of how 5 priests were providing aid during the Yellow Fever Epidemic, which killed a quarter of the Shreveport population, and how 2 of those priests' original burial sites were uncovered at the Holy Trinity Catholic Church's Oakland Cemetery. Joining me now is Dr. Cheryl White to talk about how she was inspired to discover where the 2 priests were originally buried. Hi, Cheryl. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So happy to have you here, Dr. White, to talk a little bit about this. This was really a topic that I learned about through reading through your investigation and how this was all uncovered and the facts coming to life. So let's just talk about what inspired you to, utilize the historical facts that you have at your availability to continue this investigation.
So this actually is a story that began back in 2016 when my co-authors, Father Peter Mangum and Ryan Smith, began working on a series of books about these 5 Shreveport priests who died in the yellow fever epidemic. They are now in a Vatican canonization cause. So we actually have 5 servants of God who are actually in the canonization process with the Vatican. As part of the research for that project, I ran across of course, we know where they're buried today. 4 of them are buried at St. Joseph Cemetery, which is actually the cemetery that you're thinking of that's associated with Holy Trinity Catholic Church. The other one of the 5th priest is buried in Monroe. But what I knew from the record is that 2 of the priests who died in Shreveport, the first one, Father Isidore Quemerais, and the 4th one, Father Louis Gergaud, were both originally buried in Oakland Cemetery, which is our city cemetery. And the challenge I had was that no one seemed to have a record of where exactly those first burials took place. We knew that both of them, Father Quemerais was moved to Holy Trinity Church and then moved to St. Joseph. Father Gergaud was moved from City Cemetery to Monroe. So my question really was, where was their original burial site in Oakland Cemetery? And how could I know that based on the historical record? And of course, the record was silent. The record said only that they had been buried in Oakland and then exhumed and moved. So that's where our real challenge began.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's really amazing to see that, it was all inspired by the process of them being the word is it stumps me a little bit, but basically seen as saints, right? Because of
Right.
their efforts of providing aid to those that were ill during that time. Um, and finding that it was inspired through that, but then beginning the process of the search. As you said, it was silent, right? So, how did you know where to begin in the search?
So I actually decided that the logical place to begin was to look at the sacramental registers at Holy Trinity Church, which are a great historical record in themselves, to identify the major Catholic families or prominent Catholic families in 1873 who already owned lots or plots in Oakland Cemetery, because it made sense to me that it was probably a Catholic family in the chaos of that period, the chaos of the time of that outbreak of yellow fever, that it would have been a Catholic family who simply donated a space in their family plot and said, please bury Father Quemerais here, or please bury Father Gergaud here. So I narrowed that down, working with Marty Lotion, who's the curator at our Spring Street Museum. We narrowed that down to a few families, 5 families actually. And then by visual inspection, we were able to kind of eliminate a couple of those. And then we actually, after a very promising visual inspection of the Kelly family plot in Oakland Cemetery, some anomalies we noticed about the placement of the markers and things like that, we decided to use our university ground penetrating radar, which is technology that allows obviously to see beneath the surface of the earth. And using that ground penetrating radar, we were able to not only identify, of course, where the burials were in that family plot, but also we know that whenever the earth is disturbed for a burial, if there is an exhumation, in other words, if somebody is removed from a grave, that leaves a very distinctive feature too on radar. So what we found in the Kelly family plot is that there were 2 exhumed graves side by side in that family plot. which being able to align then the historical record that we had with the families of Holy Trinity, knowing what we knew, and using 21st century technology to actually image beneath the surface of the ground, we have positively identified that that's where those two priests were originally buried.
Which is so amazing, that entire process coming full circle. And I know, through your research, you made that connection. You guys were able to use the equipment to see the exhumed burial sites. But when you went there, you guys actually, I know you guys went there physically to the plot. Tell me a little bit about that first visit, kind of just scoping out the area. What was going through your mind, and what were you guys looking for specifically?
Well, what I noticed immediately in the Kelly family plot is that imagine like sort of a rectangular family burial plot in any cemetery, and over in the far right corner there was what appeared to be a single grave that nevertheless was marked with a sort of a cenotaph that had the names of several children. So I was struck by that because of their ages, and the dates were the 1860s and 1870s. And then over in the far left corner, there were the remains of what had been some type of an original marker that had been removed, and then a newer marker placed sort of right in the center of where that earth would have been, indicating to me that when that second marker was placed, the family knew that there was no one buried there anymore. So that's really what raised our index of suspicion, was the visual inspection of that plot. And that is why, of course, we decided to use the ground penetrating radar to verify that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
sorry. Was there anything else you wanted to add on that point?
No, only that these are the things that, historians don't like unanswered questions. And when I ran across that in the record and knew that these two priests had originally been buried in our city cemetery, but no one knew where, I felt like that was a question that we had the ability to answer between the record and between our technology. And so I think it's a beautiful use of university resources and being able to answer at least one tiny little question of Shreveport history.
Absolutely. And not only utilizing the university's resources, but also some students got hands-on experience through this. Tell me a little bit about that and having them a part of all of this.
Yeah, so Abigail Boykin and Gage Schloop were our interns that worked with us this semester. We have run a history internship every semester where students get to actually be engaged in some sort of field work or important, maybe hands-on archival research, for instance. And so Marty Lotion from our Spring Street Museum was able to work with them and show them the technology. They were allowed to see how it works. They were actually allowed to use it. And then that became part of course, their semester experience of being able to be a part of a project that actually answered that question in Shreveport history.
Absolutely. And we're showing these pictures right here. So you guys see some of those students utilizing that equipment, the ground penetration equipment right there at the burial site. And so to, continue the conversation, you guys also talked a little bit about the canonization, but actually one more question. This is actually a curiosity question I had before we kind of get into what's next. So I understand that in 2023, that marked the 150th anniversary of the Shreveport Yellow Fever. So the city, I know, paid tribute to the lives lost with a memorial dedication. And I was curious, I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but I was just genuinely curious, if the 5 priests, if the names of them were displayed on that memorial dedication at the Oakland Cemetery.
No, because the Yellow Fever Memorial at Oakland Cemetery specifically commemorates the 800 plus people that are buried in that single grave together. That we knew their names only really from the public record. The Shreveport Times became a death record in the fall of 1873. That's literally all it was. And so we have the names of those who were in that mass grave. And it was really a way to specifically memorialize those people. Of the 5 priests, 2 of them were originally buried, as I said, in that cemetery, but they were buried in a family plot. They were both exhumed and moved elsewhere. The other 3 priests were never buried there. So, for instance, we also did not, that memorial does not mention the names of people who died of yellow fever who are buried elsewhere, who are buried in other family cemeteries, or even in Greenwood Cemetery, which was open by that time as well. So no, that memorial was really specifically to mark and those people that previously have not had any mention in the public view at all, and really never had obituaries and never had funerals. So that was a very special dedication.
Yeah, definitely a very special dedication. And thank you so much for clearing that up. It was just a genuine curiosity
Yeah,
question.
sure,
So, yeah,
sure.
amazing. And, now as we look forward to what's next, I know you guys mentioned that, they're looking to be declared with canonization. What's the process of that? If you can talk a little bit about that and, where the five priests stand in that process.
Sure. So the canonization process, very specific historical process, by the way, that is quite ancient, but it's changed a little bit through the centuries. But it's a process by which the Roman Catholic Church recognizes those individuals who live very exemplary, holy lives that are we could look to as models. Like this is the model or the Christian ideal by which someone would live their life, and so there is a process, and the process today is actually really 4 stages. The first stage is that they are that they would be recognized as what's called a servant of God, which is at the diocesan level. So that's a decision of the diocesan bishop. In our case, it was Bishop Francis Malone of the Diocese of Shreveport, who declared all 5 of these priests servants of God on December 8th of 2020. And then we are now in that phase of finishing the gathering of all the historical materials that will go to Rome um, soon, in the near future. And it is our very profound hope and expectation, actually, that Pope Francis will recognize them as venerable, which is the second phase in the process. So it's the bishop, and then it is the Pope. And then the next 2 steps, the third one being beatification and the fourth one being canonization, which is saint. Those final 2 steps require the verification of miracles through their intercession. And so that's a little more complex process. It can take a very short time, or it can take a very long time. But we are just quite thrilled, of course, with the reality that North Louisiana has never had anyone in the canonization process, and we have five who right here in Shreveport in 1873. So that's a pretty remarkable part of church history and world history as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that is so amazing. And I commend you for your efforts and work that you dedicate every day to uncovering this history and sharing these stories with our community. I really appreciate your knowledge, Dr. White, and appreciate your time as well.
Oh, you bet. Thank you so much for this.
Of course. All right, you guys, for more details, you can find it all right here on this story. You see it right there on ktalnews.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time.